In 2026, Amazon is very, very competitive, right? The knowledge is available everywhere. A lot of the people are very optimized in the Amazon part of the customer journey. So if you go out of the customer journey, you have an opportunity to beat the competition, right? That's exactly the main issue these days. It's not about knowing all the process and doing everything, but focusing on the right things at the right time.
Hey guys, welcome back. We're going to do some talk here today about Amazon. So I brought in a gentleman who I know has some in-depth experience about it. You guys know we talk a little bit about Amazon in these parts as one of the many channels that we operate on in terms of e-commerce. And we talk about it a lot in terms of its demand capture and the ability for, incubation of products, testing and validation of products. Of course, you can scale and optimize products and brands and portfolios. But as I always say, and I'm sure you would agree, Pietro, that Amazon is a sales channel. It does not make a single business if you're just running on Amazon. Would you agree with that statement, or would you argue with me on that?
Yes, yes, it's like an opportunity to make more sales, but it's not the only way to make sales and to do marketing for your products. That's what you
Yeah,
mean, right?
which gets a lot of people stuck, I think, in the idea that if they start that channel, they stay there forever, and that holistically becomes their business. That may have been the case 10 years ago. What do you think about that? Has it changed recently, do you think, or has this kind of been something people just really haven't caught on to until 2026?
I think in 2026, Amazon is very, very competitive, right? The knowledge is available everywhere. So a lot of the people are very optimized in the Amazon part of the marketing of the customer journey. So if you go out of the customer journey, you have an opportunity to beat the competition, right?
Yeah, and the customer journey doesn't just land on Amazon these days anymore, does it? I mean, it's one of the positions people trust. It has authority. People now know enough about the review process and the customer experience, and they know how to deal with packages and returns and subscribe and save, and they know the idiosyncrasies of being a customer on Amazon, which isn't always positive. I mean, lately, for some reason, we're getting boxes at our house and subscribe and save stuff, and then 5 or 10 of them won't show up, and all we see is the refunds. And it's like, wait, what? It said it was going to deliver, and all of a sudden we get like 5 or 10 products that get refunded. We're like, what is going on? It's happened in the last couple of weeks. It's very strange. I don't know if it's us or something Amazon's doing, or they're losing our packages, or who knows what's going on. It has its idiosyncrasies, and we like to joke that it's amazing that the thing even works at all at the level it works at. But they're getting some serious competition these days from places like Walmart and TikTok. What do you say to all that?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Like Amazon used to be the sort of monopoly in the e-commerce, and then Walmart came, and I think right now it's very competitive in all the digital space in general. So if we talk specifically about the Amazon marketing process, I agree with what you say. Like outside of Amazon, right now is the biggest opportunity for Amazon sellers. It really depends of the size of the stores, of course.
Yes.
Like, but I see, for example, that you win the lifetime value of customers outside of Amazon, and you win broader market outside of Amazon before the purchase. If you want, I can explain better what I mean.
Yeah, please continue.
Yeah. So, for example, product marketing is something that a lot of sellers are not doing much of.
Okay.
After the client has your box in their hand, you are still marketing to them to make sure they repurchase the product 1, 2,
Right.
3 times. They give the product to their family members, and they recommend them on the blogs, on the communities that they are in. And that's something that you do outside of Amazon. Is more like a referral kind of marketing, right? And a lot of sellers are not doing that. And if we talk about optimization of the acquisition before Amazon, for example, using YouTube as an educational tool to get people ready and aware about your brand and your unique features that cost more on Amazon is something that
Okay.
can make you increase the prices, for example, in the platform.
When does somebody do something like that? I mean, here's my counter to that. A lot of people hear a lot of the things we talk about and kind of get confused as to the order, when to do it, and what to focus on. So if we were to take YouTube as just one example, in your opinion, when would it be a good time for somebody to really focus on that and to take that activity and action of sales versus just, masking activity with productivity so they look like they're doing something?
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly the main issue these days. It's not about knowing all the process and doing everything, but focusing on the right things at the right time. So, as you say, like not everyone should, for example, do marketing on YouTube for his Amazon products, not everyone. But for example, we had one client with a very high ticket product with some features that the customers were not aware to need. So when they used to go on the Amazon search, they used to search the keyword and they used to see the product with some features for higher price, and they didn't buy for because they didn't appreciate enough the features. So that could be a good opportunity to market in YouTube, for example. What is the value of those features? So to position yourself with some educational videos on the main keywords that you use with an intent on Amazon, position yourself outside of Amazon, for example, on YouTube or on Google, so that you can educate the customers of what are those features are and why they are beneficial to them.
Yeah. That's actually very insightful. And when would you say a particular brand or type of product or a revenue or profitability metric, when would you advise people in your world to look at additional channels for expansion of that? And which channels would you normally want them to take a look at?
It really depends of the product. So, for example, you are in a very competitive niche and your competitors are selling by brand. So there is a lot of branded keywords. I think that's a good metric that tells you to focus on before Amazon, right? So if we see, for example, that 10% of the demand is branded, there's some marketing happening outside of Amazon. So I suggest you to do some of that. It doesn't mean to go all in outside marketing, but it means to at least be there and saturate the touch points with some basic content at least, so that you can rank organically, right? So if
Yeah.
I have to define a metric, that would be the metric.
Okay. And when you work with them, I mean, how long are you working with people to get through these processes? What's your normal time frame and kind of who do you usually try to impact?
It really depends of the type of client, because to be honest with you, some clients don't need to do outside marketing.
Yeah.
Actually,
Uh-huh.
most of the clients we work with, we help them with things that are very basic and fundamental, but done at scale, so that you can get the best results with the minimum effort, so that we can bring the fastest results as fast as possible. So for example, it's very obvious, but we see the biggest ROI with the main image optimization and the first images optimization. One, two, three, the first, the second, the third, and the fourth images are the biggest ROI activities usually. And then with basic activities like cutting PPC bleeders, scaling the Amazon PPC to be omnipresent. So to have omnipresence at lower average bids, right? But it really depends. If you are a store that needs to optimize, there is some specific activities to do. If you are a store that needs to scale, there are other activities to do. If you are a big store that is already optimized and scaled, you can optimize the time you invest in your company and the profitability with system processes, automations, etc.
Yeah. No, that's very good. Where did you get this experience from? Are you a seller yourself?
Yeah. I still have my own store, so we
Okay.
run the store still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're in the trenches yourself, huh?
Yeah. Since 2017. I mean, we started that
Mhm.
Amazon was very, very different. So, for example, if we talk about the marketing that we used to do in 2017, you started even earlier than me. So I think you've seen even more than
Did.
me.
Yeah.
If I think about 2017, it was very basic. Like listing optimization was the biggest marketing driver for us. Like we used to have break even price for a while with good listings, and we used to rank, right? You cannot do it
Yeah.
anymore usually now.
Yeah. Those may have been referred to it by somebody I've heard recently as like the golden days of Amazon around 2017 to 2019, because what was happening is there was a major shift in,
Yeah. Also, I was
you know,
in Europe at
online.
that time, that it was even more back.
Yeah. And here's what's fascinating about that. I think people kind of saw that maybe to some degree, didn't get involved or wanted to get involved in the 2019s or so, and ran into all the stuff with the pandemic, the issues, the pricing, the shipping, and all the problems that made it more difficult. All of that has sort of resolved itself. And what we've seen in the last year, and I'd love your input on this as well as what you've seen, but from 25 into now, algorithmic changes, pushback, some of the systems of ranking, Cosmos changes, attribution and stuff has been pulled back from 90 days to 30 days. We're seeing a lot of stuff that I feel really gives me that 2017 vibe again. Number of sellers are down in terms of new. If you look at Marketplace's Pulse update recently, sellers have dropped off in terms of sign up. And I think a lot of that happened during that last, 5 years of a very difficult time to get involved. For those who slugged it out, there's been great opportunity. But I really think we're looking at the next 2 years, in my personal opinion, as that really a 2017, 2019 opportunity again. That's how I see it. Just because of the ranking, the
Mm-hmm.
changes, the amount of opportunity. Yeah, there's a higher, opportunity cost to get involved. But once you do, we're seeing things rank and move at speeds we haven't seen since they, put those guide rails in, which they did for a while to stop people, like 90-day guide rails that slowed a lot of people down. What are you seeing? Because we're seeing some really great things right now that are extremely cool to watch. Products ranking to 100,000 a month in 30 days, which we haven't seen that in 7 years.
Yeah, so I think the market changed, the marketing changed, so everything is more optimized. So you need to search different ways to launch. So recently, for example, demand trends are more important than they used to be. But also, I think is a natural behavior of every industry, every economy. So at the beginning, Amazon was growing, so the seller were growing with it.
Hmm.
Then
Hmm.
during COVID, I think there was the boom of aggregators. So a lot of big entities came to buy and aggregate the businesses. It didn't work
Yep.
out very well. And then
Nope.
yeah, there was a decrease in seller amount. And usually in this phase, there is more decreasing profitability, but there is opportunities that are overseen because people started to settle a little bit, right? So, for example,
Yeah.
I've seen a lot in the last 1 or 2 years, Chinese sellers pushing a lot more with Amazon BPC and advertisement, for example, is
Hmm.
a trend that
Yeah.
was very clear in the last year. What does it tell to us? That there is still marketing opportunity and you need to be
Yep.
ready and optimize because new sellers are coming with different approaches and you need to be ready, right?
Yeah, it used to be kind of an optional thing with PPC, right? Once upon a time, but now you look at the results in most categories, subcategories, nodes, et cetera, and niches, you find that the first, row is all sponsored now. You get maybe 2 rows of that some places, and then by the third row, you get organic results, and then you see more of the advertising in. So, Amazon is made a push for an advertising engine. I think by next year, from what I saw, there and most of their revenue and profit really is going to come off of advertising and off of their infrastructure. They're becoming kind of a spoken hub infrastructure for a lot of other places. And it seems like they're going very strong on their infrastructure to go against, UPS and FedEx and stuff for delivering and handling products. And some of the other places understand that. Walmart now opened up MCF again, multi-channel fulfillment, so we can ship products through that. And we don't have to use Walmart services anymore if we don't want to. TikTok allows MCF, for Amazon products. So, you kind of build that infrastructure off of the back end of their service and delivery platform. And I think they're really trying to become part of the total infrastructure of delivery, which I didn't anticipate seeing that from them. I thought they were building it for themselves, but now they're really outsourcing it to many locations. And in a lot of ways, and you may notice this, we can ship products on MCF cheaper than we can ship them through a 3PL or other locations competitively. So many times we just end up connecting that, which is great. It just makes it a lot easier. We don't have to send so much inventory to different locations or other places. We kind of, it all goes to Amazon and Amazon feeds all these different channels. It creates a little bit of a dependency, which isn't always great, but it creates that opportunity to move that product faster into other channels
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff. Right.
A lot of things are changed. Also in Europe, there are new marketplaces coming. Like if you are an Amazon seller in Europe, you see Temu, for example, trying to contact
Hmm.
you and get you on the marketplace. There was a Spanish one, I don't remember the name. It was expanding. So yeah,
Okay.
there is a lot of things changing, a lot of marketplaces coming. So there is competition for you and for Amazon itself. But
Yeah.
I don't think the opportunity is disappearing. I just think that everything is changing so fast and you need to be changed with it. If you're able to change fast, implement AI and do all the stuff that are new, you can win very, very big. If you don't do it, you will need to suffer, right?
Yeah. Well, and one of the things you may have been experiencing, and I'll bring this up because it's most recent, but Amazon is now changing their payout policies. Have you guys experienced this recently?
The
They're
day,
adding on 7 days.
sorry, day.
Their payout policies are now net 15 plus 7.
I didn't check it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's happening in the United States right now. For those of you who haven't noticed it, some of you have that are sellers, but they used to pay net 15 twice a month, and now they're paying only 80% on net 15 roughly and 20% 7 days later. So
You mean
they're
the refund the lost and damaged units?
No, I mean, actually, your actual biweekly, payouts where you would normally get from Amazon, they're now splitting those up.
Okay,
They're
okay.
holding the capital longer in a percentage of it, and then 7 days later, they're releasing the rest of it. So you get the rest of it within 3 weeks. It's forcing the cash flow extension a bit,
Yeah,
which is a bit of a
Amazon
pain in the
is
butt.
pushing a bit against sellers in these ways, in my opinion, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's another one of my worries. Like how much Amazon will push for sellers? I don't know,
hmm
but I think it's always the same, right? If you are the good brand, you will survive. If you are the bad
Exactly.
brand, you will lose, right?
Yeah, and it's going to cost that, barrier of entry a little bit more. It's the same way that it's difficult to get into retail because retail will typically negotiate 120 net 120. So if you buy up and they're say we want 250,000 in inventory from you, you've got to wait 120 days to get paid off of that inventory. Float can take quite a long time, and most people, don't have the stomach or the capital to churn that. Those who do will gain that opportunity. And Amazon is kind of playing this game right now where they're doing this, net 15 plus 7, which is giving an extra 7 days before you get the rest of your money, which is changing the cash flow management. And a lot of companies may not be able to keep that extra 7 day float. They need that in net 15 because of the way they're running their operations. They're going to have to run, smarter in business because it's changing. It's not as dramatic as what Facebook just did. For those playing along at home or maybe playing on Facebook, Facebook is actually moving some of the larger accounts, and it looks like they're going to move a lot of them into monthly invoicing. Could you imagine if Amazon moved everything to a monthly invoice? But you can't pay on credit cards for your ads in those accounts. They're switching them to a monthly invoicing. So they'll invoice you for your cards. You must pay that invoice on their terms. If you fail to do it, they shut your whole account off. That's pretty dramatic change for the Facebook
Yeah,
marketing world
yeah. You
to
made
deal
me
with that.
scare a little bit.
Yeah, well, I hope Amazon doesn't get the wind of that and decide to start forcing payouts or payments on monthly terms. But if they're watching what Facebook is doing, Facebook figured out, and Amazon must have figured something out about their cash flow. Of course, if they hold that float just a little longer, 7 days, they're going to make a lot more money holding that money in their account on that 7 days of interest. They, with enough money, that can actually really add up, which just shows you there's quite a bit of change in the industry that these companies are facing. And of course, that doesn't always fairly impact the sellers. So what it ends up meaning is, you must open additional channels. You must have multiple places of sales. You must have a tripod, at least 3 places where you've got opportunity for growth and building. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. But that's something we've been talking about for a long time. And I think that this shouldn't really surprise sellers. If you're new, you should just be aware of these things. And for 2 reasons. One, that this is a business model that requires you to become a professional seller, and you must be have a business acumen or get trained in business acumen, or you're going to lose. And the second one is the opportunity cost just changed. So those who can't get in are not going to see that opportunity the same way they did 5, 6, 7 years ago. But those who can get in and can handle the cash flow and will run the operations and learn how to do it as a business have a huge, tremendous opportunity in front of
Yeah,
them.
barriers of entry is an opportunity, actually, right? If you're
It always
outside,
is.
it's a problem, but if you're in, it's very good.
Yep.
So, for example, with
Yeah.
Europe, we see it very well. Like, it's very hard to scale in Europe in all the marketplaces, but once you're positioned in 7, 8, whatever, how many marketplaces you want to scale to, it's hard to lose all of them at the same time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the things I want people to be very clear about here. There is opportunity cost for every business model. While getting into the e-com world had a lower one, and drop shipping was probably the lowest for a while we saw there in terms of that, around with maybe that, shop your way to wealth flipping products kind of thing in the arbitrage world, which creates a side hustle, right? And for those who need it in a hobby business, which is okay, I guess. But at the same time, if you want to build a business, if you want to build a legacy, if you want to build something that becomes an asset class, you're going to have to look at this as an investment now, not an opportunity, not a business opportunity, a biz op or whatever. You have to look at it as an asset class. You have to look at it as an investment. The same way you would approach other business models, right? If you're going to get into real estate or whatever. And I think that's the real shift, the mindset shift is the thing that we're talking about here, right?
Yeah, yeah. Everything is changed. Like also in the agency. I mean, we do agency services and coaching services. Everything changed there too, right? Need to
Yeah.
be very optimized and do things very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why for years we've offered a membership that combines, people, process, and technology, and never got into the coaching in the way that we did it maybe 10 years ago for a little while, because that was an opportunity. And really, when we got down to it, we're operators. We love the business. We want to control the business. And that doesn't give us a lot of time for quote unquote coaching individuals. But we have built memberships, and that community we have has been an integral part of what stays on top of the advancements. As we share and we learn and we grow as a group, and those members are in there building their businesses and doing things, we learn things from them and they learn things from us. And it was something we established in 2019, and have only worked with about 320 so people since then, because that membership component of that is who we invite in and who gets involved and at what level are they selling, and how can they add impact to everybody who's involved in a collective of knowledge and business and operations. We provide some of the framework and stuff to that, but I've found really, and I think you're touching on this for those listening at home, the coaching aspect of a business model in the e-com world was dead about 2 years ago. I just think people are now finally catching up with it. They're finally starting to understand with AI systems and information, the knowledge is no longer just the upside. It's more commodity now, but it really still gets down to, how do I order? How do I address that? How is my network? How do I know people like Pietro, and if he can help me in one experience and another, or save me, $10,000 over here, or $100,000 in mistakes? No YouTube university or AI is going to step into that role. And I think that's where people need to really understand. They should be considering memberships above coaching courses and programs, and they should be looking for networks. What would you say to all that?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I spent a lot of money on coaching myself, and human touch is something that AI cannot do. I think for a long time, AI will not be able to do it. And yeah, the network is so important, the community too.
Yeah.
Of course, I tell to everyone that the AI part is something that everyone needs to master, right? AI and automation, I think, is very important right now. If we talk about Amazon or any marketing, to understand very well AI and implement it well. Otherwise, you will be left behind. But still, if you talk about scaling and growing a brand, like the service that you do, for example, Neil, it's all about having the right answers at the right time. AI is not able to give you 100% the exact answer at the right time, right? Because it has not 20 years of experience. And sometimes it can make mistakes, and those mistakes are very painful and expensive, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it can be. And that's again, I think what you're going to get down to is what areas do you think, these systems, technology, and stuff that's rolling out now is going to impact you personally, either as a beginner, somebody who wants to get started, even if you have no e-commerce experience, or somebody who's in the fight for e-com today and in the daily, trenches and stuff. There are components of this business model, like any business model, that certain technologies just won't overcome. When you get going, if you used AI and you built your systems and figured out how to get everything online and you get going, when the time comes to expand your business, if you don't have a network, you're going to get in trouble. Like you can't go to traditional banks for financing if you don't have a network that helps you with lines of credits or who you get involved in. If you don't understand the higher levels of business and how to build a company, or be in the right frame of mind, or even use the right tool sets, because there's so many different ways to do things, people are going to end up acquiescing decisions. They're going to cost them money, maybe cost them their business. And that's where I see everything rising above that mosh pit of information that has been out there. What will sustain are the operators. And those are the ones you want to latch yourselves onto. And that's why I brought you on here, Pietro, because you are an operator. And I wanted people to hear this too. You're in Europe, and you do a majority of your client base in Europe, right?
Yeah. We had the clients also in the USA, in UK, but we are mostly focused on Europe and UK. Yes.
Yeah. What are you most excited about this year, though, in 2026? What are you seeing that just,
I think there
makes
is
you happy?
still space for optimization. I mean, I always think that people know everything about Amazon marketing and that are doing everything well. But every
Hmm.
time I talk with new Amazon business owners, I
Yeah.
always see that they are behind like 3 years, 5 years, 6 years. Why? Because Amazon is a SEO based marketplace. So a lot of sellers sell because they're positioned, not because they're optimized, right? So that's the opportunity, right?
Yeah, no, it really is. And you're right. Even little tweaks of optimization at scale, when you're moving 30, 50,000 units a month and you get a 0.25% in conversion increase over one optimization, that's a big win. We did this on a brand earlier we own, and we got about a 0.5% increase on it. And that's a big win, right? That conversion metric is a huge win for the amount of product we're moving across those listings. And you want to know what it was? There's no secret sauce. I just want people to understand there has to be components of the branding to understand what we did. But let me tell you the antithesis of it. We used AI images in the listing. Not funny. This was some of the stuff we learned about 10 years ago or so when we did, real photo shoots on all listings. And it took quite a bit of time, a long time to get those things going and get them right. Some of them we just did with iPhones and we're like, okay, let's just see if we can get the right use case photo, iPhone, whatever. And then we went into the professional shoots that give us to Photoshop. And then we Photoshopped a lot of stuff. And there was the age of Photoshop on Amazon, which, guys, if you're not understanding what I'm saying, let me clarify. Images in your listing will make some of the greatest impact on your conversions. That's where you should spend a lot of your time really thinking about the use case, the customer need and customer intent relationship of your product to your avatar, and really think about how you explain that, define it visually. I say an image is worth 1,000 words, right? So that's a really important part of that. But then we went to that Photoshop area, and that was a fun time when you saw the most crappiest, ugliest Photoshop images selling at the top of some of these categories, which kind of, your brain was kind of exploding because it's a terrible brand. You know what I'm talking about, right? And then we are now entering the age of AI, where the Photoshop stuff is dying, and now we're going to see the AI. And here's what's fun about that. It doesn't look as ugly as Photoshop did in the days of it, right?
No, it looks
It's
amazing. Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
almost indistinguishable,
But I
right?
think it's
And
better sometime. I
it
think it's
can be.
better.
Well, it's certainly quick. I mean, it's certainly like creatively, if I really understand how to prompt the engine right and ensure that I, get the right metrics, even use JSON to really control finite details of the image. Some of them are so professionally done now at such high levels, including Nano 2, which just came out recently, and its model has just blown us away because Nano originally the Nano Banana Gemini 2.5 was just incredible what it was doing compared to previous models. And it just, the worst model we had was last week. And the new model is like blowing everything else out of the water. And, Nano 2's ability to get finite detail on some of these engines is just hyper realism at a level that looks, like a professional photo shoot. It's just incredible. And we went and updated all the, images on one of our primary listings to AI, and even with some of the words that were a little bit skewed, and we got to get in there and kind of fix it because it's not like totally exactly right. If you get right into the corner of the words, it's not exactly right. But even then, because so many people are looking at it on mobile and they couldn't quite tell unless they were trying to zoom in, because there's so many people buying on mobile now, the conversion ratio went up. It went up by a lot. And we're like, wow, what a fascinating time to be alive.
Yeah, yeah. Images are one of the biggest leverages.
It is. Images and
if
videos.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Images and videos
We
are
use a
things.
lot of AI right now for also keywords categorization, right?
Yes.
So we do a lot of Amazon SEO to understand better the product and tell to our clients exactly the
Yeah.
keywords and segment the demand.
Yeah.
We can do right now with AI categorization so fast. And
Yeah.
that we use, for example, that to optimize Amazon PPC before setting them up. Also, AI, we use a lot horizontally in all the company, right? So every time using ChatGPT or Gemini or any AI LLM, it can really cut the cost and improve the efficiencies in
Yeah.
every sector, right? It's
Force
incredible.
multiplier, we call it. At the tactical level of some of these activities that used to take days, weeks, even months in certain circumstances, we're now to days and hours where individual operators can make those changes, output, information at the speed of thought, combine that information together into prompts and types of writing styles and image creations and even video creations that are so powerful that you can hardly even tell they weren't done by a videographer or a photographer. Sorry, guys, if you're in the video or photography world, I really hope you're getting involved in AI to some capacity. While it's an art and it's a craft, and I appreciate the idea of the artisan, in the world of business, it's no longer needed at that level anymore. And that's a shifting dynamic that is both good and bad. I like technology, but I don't like technology that destroys. I like it when it creates, when it multiplies. I don't like it when it destroys. And so I'm, personally aware of that, and I see its opportunity, but at the same time, I have an operator that can run 3 companies with a set of tools, act like an air traffic controller, managing systems and blinky lights on dashboards, and no longer needs, 5 other people to support that process. One person can put the output of 10 people now. And when focused correctly on the right processes with the right metrics and the right, SOPs, they're dangerous weapons. And using it, they really are. They can output so much more information and stuff. So, that's some of the lessons learned from people who are on the ground. For those of you who are paying attention as we speak about these things, if you're involved in a business and want to get more information, certainly check out what Pietro is doing and make sure you understand, especially if you're in Europe. He does have clients in the US, but a lot of his stuff is in Europe. And if you happen to be there and, we need European intelligence and information and support, I would definitely have you look him up for that. And, make sure you ask good questions and make sure that you're paying attention to the changes, because they are literally happening on a daily basis, aren't they?
Yeah. Everything is moving so fast.
Yeah, it is moving fast. Anything else I didn't ask you about or we didn't talk about you wanted to bring up, brother?
No, I think it was amazing discussion. I loved it. We went on talking about big topics, about the future of Amazon. I liked it. Yeah.
Good. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on, and I appreciate you coming and sharing a good word with us today.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Thank you for coming on. Like, share, comment, give somebody this information. If they're new or existing and they need to understand some of the thoughts and processes here, you're going to understand very quickly as you continue to listen to my podcast that not everything that you can impact is tactical. It is strategic. If you understand the business first, you understand the cash flow and the management, the operations and control, those are your true weapons against the marketplace competition. What you do tactically next should only be defined by the things that you can impact the most. And that should be based on abilities to drive net profit. Revenue is vanity and profit is sanity, and cash flow is king. That's why we love the e-commerce world. And remember, guys, do something imperfectly and something perfect will happen along the way. Catch you guys on the next episode.